Super. Chris, when I exited my phone, I made you the host. I'm not sure if I am host just now. Just check.
No, you are co-host, and that will explain why I can now record this meeting.
Okay, so you're host, yeah?
Yep.
I'm co-host. I'll see if I can do a share screen. So share.
I can make you host again.
I can actually, as long as I can share, that's all I need. Yeah, I can share my screen, can't I? Yeah, that's fine. What is this? It's been a long time. What's happening here? Don't know what's happened there. I'm just going to share my, it somehow is not sharing properly. Let's try again. Something. Okay, so that's my browser screen you can see now, yeah? And on here, I'll just do a quick run through of where we are just now, what we've kind of covered. So string methods, I think was the last thing which we looked at. All I hear is fireworks. Do you hear those in the background, folks, through my mic?
They sound like they're going off in your living room, Asmat.
It's just everyone, I think everyone wants to just get fireworks in my neighborhood here.
Same here.
I can actually hear echoes, so behind the house and in the front of the house, and goodness. Yeah. Okay, so now after this string operations are actually really important in programming. So I've put a couple of exercises which are right at the end of this unit. If any of you are up for a wee challenge in using string methods, in the assessment, we don't actually use much. We don't do much in the way of string. Your assessment really, I'll show you the assessment today for this unit, but it doesn't actually test you much in the way of string methods. But they are really important when you go on to build GUI applications, because in GUI applications, everything is text. Whenever you take input from the user, it always comes in as text. It doesn't come in as a number as such. So that's why string operations, although we're going to leave them today, these few methods that we saw, which I demonstrated last week, getting the length of a string, finding specific characters, pulling out substrings and so on, these are good, but once you start to problem solve with them, that's when it really makes sense as to why we need these string methods. So right at the end of this unit, which I might not get a chance to actually do with you, if you come right down to the bottom, and you come, a very good one would be these three. So these three things here: license generator, Caesar cipher. I would take them in the order of license generator. If you really want a good challenge in using strings, then license generator is probably a good one to use. License generator. So what that does is it expects the user to enter a first name, a last name, and a company name, 3 strings. And then using these 3 strings, a license gets generated based on some data that's pulled out from these. It reverses one of them. It gets a random number and uses the random number to do something with the other, and so on. So do have a look, and if you want to tackle that, then send me an email. Just say that you'd like to try this license generator. The other one is Caesar cipher, which again does things with strings. Caesar cipher is there's something else called ROT13, ROT13, where the key is always 13. You can Google ROT13 and see what you find in Wiki on that. So ROT13 is an encryption which basically jumps every character 13 characters ahead. Caesar cipher uses a key, and if you don't know the key, you don't know the encryption or decryption. Very simple, probably very easy to crack, but good exercise in using strings and string manipulation methods within Java. So both of these are good for if you want to have a wee problem solving exercise using strings and creating a program where you ask the user for the strings. In this case, you're asking them for 3 strings. And in this one, you're just asking for maybe a string, a line of text, and then a number. And then once you have that number, you can then run, you'd have to write the code that pulls out these characters from the text that the user types in, and then plus the number ahead in some way. So it's a bit of a, I wouldn't say it's an intermediate type exercise, but you need to know your strings and handling strings for that. Okay, so I'm going to see if we can go through loops today. We'll do some practice on loops. I'll show you some examples of how we use for loops and while loops. And maybe I'll go into return types if we have time to go into return types later on today as well. Methods and return. In fact, no, I'm going to leave return types because return types are not absolutely necessary for this course, this unit, I think just now. I'll see how we go with these two, because you're not going to be creating text-based menus. You'll be going into using the GUI. So it'll be a graphical user interface type application that you'll be expected to create and build. I'm just going to see if I can find, just to give you a kind of sight of the final program which you have to create. See if I can locate it in my machine. Test. I'll maybe find it. If we go for a wee break, I'll look for it. I can't seem to locate it just now. So I'm just going to switch now to my NetBeans. I should really, let me just do a switch to the full screen. So let's stop share, share full screen. Okay, so you should be seeing my full screen now, and I'll just shrink this down a wee bit. Just let me know if that's too small for you, if it's not visible. Okay, so we're going to create a new project first for, or look at loops. Now, if you were going to go on to create the license generator, one of the things license generator does ask for you to do is to reverse one of the strings. So here's a program which uses an algorithm to do the reversal. And again, it's just using the various string methods that we have. So declare a string, declare a variable to hold the length of that string that comes in, use a scanner, and just increase that size for you. Use a scanner. You can test this directly by just putting it into, if you wanted to test this, you can put this straight into a project, or maybe even an X tester if you didn't want to start a full project. And then it uses a length, and it does a reversal in a for loop. So you see this, it jumps for, it uses a loop. I'm just going to explain these loops. So basically what we're doing here is going through each of the characters of the string and adding them to a different output string. So we take each character backwards, we're going backwards. Notice here that you're going, it's a minus minus. So we're starting at the end of the string, and working our way back in reverse order. And as you're pulling the characters out, those are being sent out to the screen using a print statement instead of a print ln, which means that each character from the end of the string gets pulled, sent to the screen, then the next one gets pulled, sent to the screen, but no new lines are ever taken. And so if you don't take a new line, then they just look as if they're just being sent on the same line. But a loop runs to do this. If you didn't want to send them to the screen, then instead of doing this system.out, we could have, at this point, just have another string, which can be your final string, and just add each character to that final string, basically giving us the ability to reverse a string and save the reversed string inside another string variable. That makes sense, folks. Is again, if anything of this doesn't sort of ring with you, or if you're missing something from even the previous, please come on mic and just let me know. If I'm maybe going too fast or too slow, or if you want more practice on something, do let me know, because I realize I am going a wee bit fast for you in the various things that we're working with. Okay, so that's reversal, string reversal. Back. So a for loop then takes this format. I will copy this code. So this is on the left-hand side, you see the basic syntax. So for, then there's an initializer in it, a Boolean test, and then an update, followed by the body of what we want to repeat. So let me copy this. I will bring it into a project. So let's call this project for test. So you can do the same. I'll take you through the processes, the kind of method that I use when I create a project, just so that you do the same. So Java with Ant, then click on Java application, hit the next button, make sure that you change the project name. I'm going to call this for test. It changes project location. I'm using the F drive, which is my external drive. It has a folder in there called My NetBeans, and it's created me another folder to hold the source files for this project. It's given me a package name of for test. So whatever I type in here, I've capitalized the F, capitalized the T. Make sure you always do this for project names. Otherwise, your class will not have a capital in the start of it. So the package name for test, I'll explain to you where that comes in, and then hit finish. So here we have the package name. It's shown in NetBeans using this sort of folder icon, source package, and our .java file. Again, it's called for test, capital F, capital T this time, and this should always match the class name, capital F, capital T in the class name. The package is always also given a line at the top to signify that it belongs to this package. Packages are a way to hold collections of classes. So when we do import, for example, java.util. Anything that you see here, these are, sorry, not here, java.util. Yeah, so the util is a package. Util is a package, and lang is a package, which is a basic language. Whenever you hit dot, so usually then inside those you see classes. These are all the objects that are available within that particular class. And notice that every object begins with a capital letter. You see all those, and that's the significance in Java of using capital letters for classes. These are all classes. These would have been created as like this public class, and then the class name. The one that we tend to use all the time is, of course, the util.scanner. So here's scanner. It's part of the util package. It's inside that folder. So I will bring this in just in case I need it. Tells me it doesn't, it's not being used, unused imports, that's fine. Not actually made any use of it, but I'll leave it in there. Maybe hide it just now, just in case I don't use it. But I'm going to remove all these additional comments just to keep things clutter-free just now. Okay. Maybe we will start, I think we'll start with a scan. We'll start with asking the user for a number. So you can jump ahead and try this on your own, or you can read copy from what I type in. So I am going to have java.util.scan. Let's create a scanner first of all. So scanner space, I'll call it my scan, small letter. My scan equals new scanner open bracket, and then it's from system.in, semicolon at the end. So there's my scan, and now I will send out a message to the user to enter a number. So SOUT, press the tab key, and please enter the number. Sorry, is my keyboard typing annoying? Because I've got my mic hooked onto my keyboard. If it gets too annoying, just let me know. Please enter a number. Let's see if you guys are still there. I'm not hearing anything from anyone. You all still there, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just in case my connection drops or something, just if you can just give me a, I've not got you on my, I've not got the video on, so I don't see you there just now. So please enter a number, and then the number will come in, and we want to save that number inside a variable. So the variable we'll use is an integer. So int space, and we'll call this user's number equals then my scan. So I'm using, I just typed in my, my, and I'm going to press the control key down on my keyboard, control down, keeping it depressed. Then I'm pressing my space bar, and that will automatically pull the most significant word instead of saving me having to find and type it. Automatically found my scan, so that's fine. So my scan, then dot a next int is what I want. So I want the integer from the keyboard, from the user. Please enter a number. User enters a number. Once I have the number, I'm then going to jump into a loop. So I'm going to repeat something. I'm going to, first of all, let me just send out the user's number to the screen. Sometimes it does that. You need to catch it just at the right time to get the tab key to work for this. Your number was, then in here, plus users. So again, I type in USE, use control, press the space bar, and it will save me typing the full word in just in case I make a mistake. So your number was, put a space here, user's number. Let's do a quick test on this, make sure it runs okay. It's asking me for a number. I type in a number, 23, press enter, and it tells me your number was 23. Just a quick question, is everyone's NetBeans working okay for you now? Chris, I don't know, yours was the only one I know that was.
Yeah, it seems to be working fine now.
You've got it all going, yeah. Anyone else having any problems, or you all got NetBeans working fine? All good, super. Okay, so now we're going to go into a loop and see if we can loop this around. So use the for keyword, for, then we open the bracket. And I tend to just space it out so I know what's happening inside here. And I'll put a semicolon here. I'll put another semicolon here. So let's go back to our sample code here in my city, just to make sure that we're working with this okay. So here's the for loop syntax. So we have an initializer where we want to start from. Now, in this case, we've initialized and declared a number right inside here. We don't have to do this. It can happen outside. Because we've got user's number, let's see what we're going to do with this first of all. And then in the middle part, we put in the condition to stop. And the last section after the last semicolon is what exactly do we want to do with the next loop that's happening. Now I'm going to run this, and I'm going to take you into the debugger to show you exactly what happens in the code. So we have our for. We'll leave this as is just now, and then we'll put in the additional braces. So one brace, just make sure that these match. I need another one. So when I press the enter key, it adds the other one in for me. You see that? So this for loop, make sure you do this just in case you, I'll do it once more just to let you know. So you can see, so for, notice this red line under here, telling me that something's gone wrong. Of course, this closes off the public static void main method. And then semicolon, press the enter key, and it adds the second brace to close off the for loop in this manner. So for starts here, and we've got a user's number. User's number comes in. We're going to use the user's number to do something inside the body of the loop. So we'll do something 10 times. Let's repeat something 10 times. So we'll start off with an initializer. I'm going to int, I'll call this, in fact, I'm going to call this loopy. Int loopy, start it off at position 1, and I'm going to continue until the number is less than an upper bound, and my upper bound is going to be 10. So loopy is less than or equal to, we're going to use less than or equal to here, less than or equal to 10. And loopy is going to be on each iteration. On each iteration, we want loopy to be incremented by 1. So loopy plus plus I could use, or loopy equals, just the more verbose words we would use, something that gives it a bit more meaning, I think, just now. You can start to use these shortcuts, I think, later on in your, if you continue on with coding, the shortcuts are useful then, but I think when you're learning, it's always good to just have these full versions in just now. So loopy equals loopy plus 1, which means that loopy, each time the iteration happens, we're going to add 1 on to loopy. Now let's just send out loopy for just now, just the numbers. So the loop number is, and then we'll plus, in fact, I want to send this, yeah, we'll send it on a print line, so a new line each time, and we'll send this out as just exactly as it is, saying the loop number is, and we'll run this just now. It's still going to ask me for a number, but we're not doing anything with this number this time. So the number gets taken in, it's going to print out your number was, and then it's just going to jump into the loop. And the loop output is just this. That's all it's doing. So it's simply sending out each of these loop numbers to the screen. Now, while we're in the loop, then let's just see exactly what happened. If I put, you can try the same, put a breakpoint at number 14. So move the cursor to your line number, wherever the line number is, where your for loop is, and press once. Tap the left mouse key once, and this line will go red. When that line goes red, it tells me that there is a breakpoint here, line breakpoint. Hover above it and you'll see line breakpoint. So this is a breakpoint, which means that if I now debug project, then the program code will stop on the breakpoint. So at this moment it's running, it's on the output tab, so go to the output tab. It's waiting for my number. So nothing is happening here just now. It's waiting for my number to be entered. Before it reaches this line, program hasn't stopped. So make sure you click on output, tap in a number if you're doing this as I'm going, and then it stops. This line then goes green. Now, when this line goes green, I now want to check the value of loopy by going into variables. So I come into variables, It tells me the variables and what they contain. That's 12, my scan. Not interested in that just now. So we'll leave all these just now. Loopy, I want to watch Loopy. It's not here. It's not displayed here. So enter a new watch. Just type in Loopy. Press enter. I wonder if I should be inside here. Maybe I should remove the breakpoint. I'll remove the breakpoint. Sorry, just one sec. I'll remove the breakpoint from here. Tap and take it down to here. Debug project. In the output, enter a number. Enter a number. Go to variables, and yeah, it's available to me now here. So Loopy, we can see that the program now has the value 1. Loopy has the value 1. And if I now go and step over, F8 shortcut, step over, tap F8. It then goes back again. F8. Notice down here, this is the Loopy, this is the number we're interested in, it's changing. So you can tap F8 continuously, and that number at the bottom of my NetBeans screen, you'll see it changes. It's going up. And the program is literally looping around these lines of code. It's continuously going around these lines of code. And it's going to keep doing this until the condition says leave. So that's the condition is that Loopy is less than or equal to 10. That's the condition to leave. Now, if the condition does not leave, if the condition is never true, then we remain inside this loop forever and ever, something which is known as an endless loop. So an endless loop means that your program is never going to come out of that loop. So this condition, sometimes it's always good to do this debug test to see that it's possible to exit the loop. That's a for loop then. And for loops are really only useful when you know exactly how many times you want to execute a block of code. So I know exactly how many times I want to repeat this. And that's where a for loop comes in. But sometimes you don't know how many times you want to repeat something. In that case, we use a while loop or a do while statement. And that's the next type of loop, which I'm going to introduce you to. So for loops then are really for when you know exactly what you're doing with them. I'll come back to these in just a second. Just before I do this, I'll show you this while and the do while example. So here's a while, and the while takes this format. So while keyword and then some condition, open brace and close brace. So there has to be an update to some number in the condition to allow this to exit the while loop. If there is no update, then we end up in an endless loop. Okay, so let's test. In fact, I'll leave this. I'll create another project, I think, for while test, and we'll put those into that. So we'll come on to these in just a while. Before we move on then from the for loop, there is a couple of exercises that would be good for you to try. So here's one. Here's a few exercises here. First one, display Java is fun 20 times. So again, using the format of a for loop, I'll just bring these back just now. Now the loopy variable is only ever used inside the context of a for loop. So I can, once you're out of the for loop, it goes, it's disappeared. So program still running, let's stop it running. Take my debug point off. And so I don't want this to happen. So let me just hide all this code for just now. So I'm just going to hide this scanner code just now, and I'll also close this down as well. So I only have the for statement here, and this just prints off the loop number. So I'm going to take a copy of this now. And with the copy, sorry, yeah.
Asma, I'm getting like a error when I try and run the like for in loopy, and I don't quite understand why. It's telling me that I need to create a local variable.
Okay, do you have the int? You have loopy there?
Yeah. I've literally, like, I was just following along, and it looks exactly the same as yours, and from my understanding, I can't see anything.
Could you quickly paste that inside here, the class?
Oh no, I'm so sorry. It's because I'd accidentally put in, ignore me. I just found the error, sorry.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so come back here, and we're doing this one first, yeah? So let's just quickly print off. Java is fun 20 times, and then after we print this, we want to print end of program. We want to print another line called end of program. So this is going to happen 20 times. So loopy will start it at 1. We'll go on less than equal to 20. And we'll print. So basically it's just exactly the same thing again. Rewrite Java is fun. We'll take the last part out. And then after it finishes, we want to display end of program. So once it comes out of the loop, so we can't have that statement inside the loop body. The body has to repeat, and then at the end, we do a system.out end of program. So this is, I'll hide this as well just now. So this is if you want to hide multiple lines in Java, /*// just hides them from the compiler. So this is the loop that would do this Java is fun 20 times, and then end of program at the end. Try running this. So it only prints end of program once, and the rest it's going to print 20 times. Let's just do a quick test to see if it's done that 20 times. We'll stick a loopy at the start. Plus, I wonder if it's going to work. I might have to do it the other way around. Yeah, it's done it. Plus space at the start. So that's the loopy number automatically being added into that string. Just to show you. Now, you don't usually use the loop number, but you do have access to it. Just to, as you can see, you do have access to that variable if you wanted to use that variable as well. Next program which displays include the stars. So we're going to print some stars at the start, some stars at the end. So this is stars before the loop, and these are stars after the loop. And inside the loop, we want to print jumping jack sprat once, twice, 3 times. So in the loop, then we're going to loop round and print these things one of these 3 times. So loops then, as you can see, they stop us from typing out code over and over again. I mean, this output here, for example, Java is fun. I could have had 20 of these lines. So we could have done 20 of these lines, but because it's repeating, a better solution is use a loop. And this is a form of iteration then. All programming languages have iteration within them, allowing us to repeat lines of code, which means that we have less lines of code and it's more efficient behind the scenes as well. So the next one then, stars. We'll print some stars first of all at the start. I'll just modify this program. So the first thing we do is an SOUT, press the tab key. We print this at the start, and I'll just use the same one. I know it's slightly different in the code, but I'll use the same one to signify the close. So this is the end part. And then inside the loop, we want to simply print jumping, jack, and sprat on three separate lines. Now, one of the ways to do this is to have 3 separate systems.out.printlns, where I have, I'll show you it both ways. So I could have jumping here. I could have three lines of code. There's the second one is jack. Now, if you double click on a word, it's a fast way of selecting the word instead of dragging your cursor across. If you're using a mouse, it makes it easier. Just double click, triple click. Triple click grabs a line, a full line. So double click grabs a word, 3 clicks grabs the full line. I think when you're writing a lot of code, programmers like these kind of shortcuts because you're working with the keyboard a lot. So it's easier to sort of copy and paste things around about. So jumping, jack, sprat, 3 lines, 3 LNs, which means that it gets printed on the screen and then a new line gets taken. Just hide that. And this is basically what we're asking to do. So we want to run, oh, that's doing it 20 times. We just want to do it 3 times. So we'll change the loop to 3. And this way it'll only print it 3 times. So jumping, oh, jumping, jack, jumping, sprat. Yeah. One, 2, and 3 times. But this time I've used 3 system.out.printlns. Another way you could do this is use the escape character inside this string, which is a /n followed by jack, then another /n followed by sprat. These are known as escape characters, so which means that I don't need these lines now. So I'm going to hide these 2 lines out. So jumping gets sent to the screen, /n is a new line. Anyone remember to give me a tab, what would it be? What was the escape character for a tab?
/t.
/t, yeah. So there's various escape characters that can be used inside strings. If you go back to, I think there was a slide which I did inside here somewhere, inside my city, which shows you all the different escape characters that we have. So when we run this program now, it does exactly the same thing, but I'm using just 1 line. Okay, so it's less lines of code to work with here. Okay, I'll leave these ones for just now. These should be okay. So write a program which takes input of 10 names and then send them to the screen. So again, it will be inside a for loop where you'd have your, again, 10 times. So if you keep note of this loop format, if you ever want to repeat things inside the body, then you can simply reuse this line of code followed by 2 braces inside a for loop. Let's quickly see how we can send out the times tables to the screen. So I'll hide this out first. We want to send out, let's say, the 6 times table or the 5 times table. So 5 times 1 equals 5, 5 times 2 equals 10, and so on. And we'll do this up to 12. So we need to jump around the loop 12 times, and inside the loop we send out. Now this is where we need to format what we're sending out. So we want to send out, first of all, let's just send out loopy. Then we know what's happening. So loopy times, and let's do the 5 times table. So 5, loopy times 5. And it's going to start from 1 and work its way up to 12. So when we run this, it gives me what's known as the stations of the 5 times table. So 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on. But let's now format this a bit better. So I want to send out loopy, which is 5, and then plus, and inside this is what's known as a string literal. I'm just going to send this straight to the screen. So I'm going to use a capital X 5. So the first part, loopy, will print 5, loopy 1. In fact, no, I'm going to send. I want the 5 at the start, don't I? So I want a 5 at the start. So it'll be like this: 5 times. So the number 5, because it's fixed, I'm just doing the 5 times table. 5, then times, then I need a loopy here. And the loopy will become 1, and then it will become 2, and so on. So 5, a space after it. 5 times, let's take a space here as well. Then 5 times loopy becomes 1, 5 times 1, and then an equals sign, and then plus. Once the equal sign has gone in, then I can do the actual sum of loopy times 5, and I'll stick this inside brackets just to make sure that it does this before it sends the rest out. It's missing another bracket at the end. So it's going to calculate loopy times 5. It's going to say 5 times loopy equals, followed by loopy times 5. So let's do a quick test on this. So there's our times table, 5 times 1, and so on. Okay, now we'll take a wee break there, shall we, folks? Take a quick 10-minute break. And when you come back, if you can modify this program, so this one that you're working with there just now, modify it so that you ask the user to enter a number, and the user will enter the number of the times table that they want to run, and also ask the user, so ask the user for 2 numbers. Number 1, I'll put this in here, just so you know, and you can tell me if you're kind of understanding this. So write a loop program which asks the user for 2 numbers. So the first number is how many times you want to display the times table for. So right, ask the user for 2 numbers. Number 1 will be the iterative factor. So how many times times you want times tables to be repeated. And number 2 will be the number that you want, will be the actual factor. Okay, so if I entered 5 and let's say 8, it would give me number 1. Number 1 is 5, and so you understanding what I'm trying to ask for here, folks? Yeah. 2 is 8. So it would repeat how many times you want it to repeat, and then 8. So it should print out 8 times 1 equals 8, and so on. 8 times 2, and so on. And it's going to do this 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it goes up to 5. So 8, 16, 24, 32, and 36. This will print 8 times 1 times 2 times 3, 4, and 5. So this here, it goes from 1 to 5. So let's call this that's fine, that's fine. So the first number and the second number we're entering in. Okay, so give that a wee bash, and I'll see you back in about 10 minutes, folks. Yeah, are okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'll leave you with that just now. Yeah. Back on this. Okay, so I'm going to, now what I'll do is I'll run through some examples on while loops just now, and then I'll leave you with some practice exercises using for loops. I'm not going to run through these presentations, but do have a look at these. They'll cover the basics of what I've just kind of gone through with you using loops. So do take a look at these, and they'll give you a kind of summary of what I've covered with you just now on for loops. So moving on to the other example of iteration then, and for loops. First of all, let's look at the basic structure of a while loop. So there's a while, do, and then there's do while. Just give me 1 second, folks. I need to just switch off mic just for 1 second. Okay. So while Boolean test, and this one do, and the while Boolean test happens at the end of the loop. So this tells me something. It tells me that in this loop, in this example, if you use the while with the Boolean test before the body, then it could be that the body is never executed. Never executed. If the Boolean test became false, then we're not executing the body of the, let's minimize this. We never execute the body. In this example, we run the body at least once, because then the Boolean test at the end might become false, which means that we never go back to the do part. This is a different.
Asma, I'm sorry for interrupting. I can't actually see if you're sharing anything on the screen now.
Oh, Sorry. Yeah, that was my fault. So I must have taken that off. Okay, yeah, I'm looking at this, the while loops then. So while, if you look at this in my city, then while Boolean test, or you have do while Boolean test. So wherever you're doing the test, in the while example, we're doing the test right at the start. In this example, we're doing the test right at the end, which means that the body in this section, in this example, if you have while, it means that this body may never run at all. Whereas if this, it may run, it has to run at least once. It has to run at least once. The update has to happen inside the body in this case. So while loops are useful when you don't know when to exit the program or when to exit the loop. For loops, we need to know how many times we've got to execute this. So when you know exactly how many times to execute, use a for. If you don't know how many times to exit, use a loop, use a while. Let's see an example. So we'll grab some sample code from here. So we'll just take this, copy. I'm going to put this into another program, so you can do the same if you want. So file, new project. I'll call this a while test. Keep everything as is. Finish. Remove these. Tab key just to push it forward a wee bit. And I'm going to just remove this example. Actually, I just want to remove these just now. And I'll create another number. So int number equals 12. I'll fix these. While number is less than or equal to 20, I'll just use fixed numbers instead of variables, just to help us kind of understand this before I start to use variables. And I'll remove this line as well. And I'll change the format of this. So instead of plus number, just to make it a bit easier to read, I'll change this to number equals number plus 1. That's the update. So there's a loop. The loop brace starts here, closes here. Let's remove this line as well. So the reason why I just did a copy paste of that code, when you're kind of starting off as coders and programmers, we always want to use reference points. And actually, it doesn't really matter how far and how advanced a coder you become. We still rely on sample code that's made up. And that's basically what I've done there. I've just taken some sample code and then modified it to work for me. So I started this at number 12. Number equals 12. While number is less than or equal to 20, which means that it's going to run this loop because number starts at 12, and it then adds 1 onto the number. It's going to repeat this loop continuously repeat this loop until number is greater than 20. And then it will jump out of the loop. So let's just test this by putting another message outside the loop, saying loop has ended. Let's test this. So this is a while. using the while keyword. And it just tells me that loop has ended. That's all it's giving me in the output, because there's nothing else happening inside this. But let's send number out as well inside the loop. So that's inside the braces this time. And we'll say, oh, we don't have a loop. I just call it number. So print the number is plus number. That's what this variable, the variable we're using this time is called number. So while the variable is less than or equal to 20, add 1 onto the number and send out the number. But let's do this. Let's run it just now. Let's see what happens. It started off at 13. So I should really have put the update at the end. So I'll put this after this line. Again, an example of sequence. Things happen in sequence. So what it did was it did the program added 1 onto 12 to give me 13 before it printed. So this time it should start at 12 because I've moved the position of the increment after the system got out. So now it's starting at 12, starts at the number I wanted it to start from, and it goes up to 20. And that's the condition, less than or equal to 20. Now, if I missed out this number equals number plus 1, it's going to continuously run. There's no means of it coming out of that loop. The number is constantly 12, and you see that it's constantly running. There's no way, you see my this is just constantly moving. There's no way of it stopping now. I need to press this X button here to stop it. So this sometimes happens if you miss out inside a while loop. With the for loop, the syntax allows you, asks you the condition. So it's a bit easier in that way, but sometimes in these using while loops, it doesn't happen. So number equals number. So let's see what happens then using a do while this time. So that's the condition going back in. Starts at 12, goes up to 20, and it prints those numbers. The do while does the test at the end. So let's say number was, just to show you the difference in that do while and a while. Let's say the number was 21, which is greater than 20. And then when we run the program, loop has ended. But it never printed any of these. It did not print any of these at all, which means that the body never executed even once, because the Boolean test happened before the body got a chance. The Boolean test became false. It's false before we even started. And that's what I mean by here. So while Boolean test is happening, body may never run. If Boolean test is false, we are not going to run anything within the body. Okay, so let's try the other version, which is a do while, and that looks like this. So do braces, then the body with the while Boolean test at the end. So do keyword, open brace, press enter. It'll give me the second close brace, I think. Has it? No, yeah, it has. It's just waiting for my while to come in. The while happens straight after. So it's straight after the closing brace. So you can stick it on here, or you can stick it on the line after. While is going to happen at the end with a semicolon to close the whole thing off. And this time we'll use the same condition. while number less than 20 equal to 20. So we'll put that in here. And now it's syntactically, it's now correct. So if you missed out some of these, you'll notice it gives you that squiggly red line telling you that something's gone wrong. And then inside here, we'll do the same thing again. We'll just print these. We'll just take the same body. And now let's hide the one at the top just to test on it. So I'm going to hide out these. Okay, so number starts off at 21. It comes into my do loop. It prints this out, number equals the number is, adds 1 to the number, jumps into the Boolean test, and then it moves out from the loop. And we'll just copy this line here as well, just to test to see what happens to it when it comes out of the loop. Quick run. So the number is 21, loop has ended, which means that it went into the body and then it came out after it did the test at the end. So that's the do while. So even if the number is out with the Boolean test, the body still runs. It runs at least once. That's the difference between the while do and the do while. In a do while, it will run at least once. If I change this to a lower number, let's change it to 15. And then run it. This time it should, again, give us a bit more action, going from 15 up to 20, and then loop has ended. So that's the do while and the while loop. So these were loops then, folks. Now there is some exercises here which you can try. How did you get on with this program here? You were okay with that? 2 numbers going in and then you're printing these. So you probably have had one loop, so two numbers being asked from the user. And then, so if we go back to just to show you how I would have kind of coded this in the for source. So we need to change this number and this number. Sorry, no, the initializer is okay. The initializer stays as is. The 12 changes and this 5 would have to change. Let me modify this program just to take in to answer this. Okay, so ask the user for 2 numbers. We need the scanner. Right, you know what? I'm going to just start another project for that one. Multiply multiplication tables. Okay. And I'll take the code from the for test. I'll just reuse that code. I need a scanner import. Dot easier to copy this. Scanner, create one scanner, ask the user for a number. This is the, let's call this the number 1, which is the iterative factor. So please enter the iterative number. So how many times you want to repeat, how many times you want to loop, basically, the iterative number. So the first one is the iterative. So let's just rename this variable as iterative. And then we'll ask the user again for another number. And this is going to be the second number. Second number comes in. Please enter the multiplication factor. Let's call this the multiplication factor. Okay, and so this, we'll call this the factor equals myscan.next. So this gets the how many times you want to repeat, how many times you want to run the loop, and this is the number that we want to use as the multiplication table number. We're going to start at 1. We want to start at 1. We want to repeat this not 12 times. We want to repeat it iterative times. And we want to multiply it. So this number 5 is going to change, and this number 5 is going to change to be factor. So 5, remove, call that factor. And here we don't want to send just a number 5 out to the screen. We want to send out factor to the screen. So I will remove these because this is multiplication table. Take these out. I'll take this out as well. Make it easier to read. So scanner gets created. Send a message to the screen. Take a number from the user. Save that in a variable called iterative. Get the factor. Save that in a variable called factor. Run a loop, which prints them out. So I'm going to enter in 5 and 8 just to make sure that it gives me the same output that I've got in that example. So let's just quickly run it. I'll enter in 5 and I'll enter in 8. So iterative 5 factor 8, and it should give me, oh, I made a mistake in my calculations here. The last one should have been 40. So 8. So that's it printing, that's it working now. What I'll do is I'll copy this code and I'll post it in to here for you, just so you can use it as an example. Okay, I'll close this down. In fact, no, let's go back to my city program here, and I'll just show you some examples that I can leave you with to practice your loops then. So while loops, using while loops. Now this is all in my city. If you want to do some more for loop practice, there's some more examples in the for loops. But do take a look at these documents, folks, again, just to consolidate what you've just learned. I'm just going to have a quick look at the for, just in case I've missed something in the for. I think I have covered everything that's needed. Just have a quick look at this. You can still see my screen, I think, yeah. Yeah, so this does give you, again, if you want to use this as a kind of recap, you can use this. Counting down. So loops are not just for counting upwards, you can come downwards as well. So say, for example, you want to print the numbers from 10 down to 0. The initializer then becomes the larger number, and the decrement is used down at the bottom here in the last section. It doesn't have to always decrement by 1, incidentally. You can increment or decrement by a factor of 2 or 3 or whichever number you want. So you could have I equals I plus 7 if you wanted. It doesn't, whatever you want to code it, that's what you use. Okay, so that's just looping downwards instead of just upwards all the time. This one, have a quick look at this, just make sure I have nothing missed in here. The for create variable. So variable scope is, let me just jump to that variable scope. I showed you in the loop, the variables that you declare inside the loop can't be accessed outside that loop. What do I mean by that? Let me just show you with an example. So I'll go back to my for test. This was the initial for example. And what we did was we declared a variable called loopy here. Now, as soon as you come, the loopy variable only has scope inside this loop. If I try outside here, for example, to print, this is outside the loop. Loopy variable plus loopy. Now you notice that it tells me it can't find it. It doesn't know it because I've declared it here. It was declared inside the loop, so you can't see it here. If I wanted to use this value outside the loop, I would have to declare this. But you don't usually use these. The loop variable tends to be used inside the loop, and then it's never needed again. I would have to do this, and that's valid code now. I declared the loopy outside the loop, so it has to be, this is all to do with scope. The site of that variable inside it's only alive inside the block of code. So declared inside, can't be seen outside. So this is what we're meaning by the scope of the variable. So inside here, if you come in, it's just showing you how to use the breakpoints again to test the values of code variables. There's an infinite loop example here. So you don't need to have any conditions, and again, this will just continuously repeat. 2 semicolons, you don't need to have anything in the init and so on. Infinite loop. So here's scope, variable scope. Test only exists inside the loop. So here the variable I no longer exists when the for loop terminates. The value doesn't work. It doesn't even, the variable gets deleted as well from memory. It's removed from the variable from memory. It's what's known as a local variable. We'll go on and look at locals and globals in the weeks to come. But you see here, there's a loop here. There's a for loop. That variable is available to all these sub blocks of code, but they're not available outside the block of code. The X here, for example, is available inside. This X here has been declared as a global variable, its scope. Anything that's in the sub can see and use the variable X. Inside this method, I can be seen by the for loop as well as any code inside. So you see this I is being used inside. Okay, so that's scope. Okay, folks, I'm going to leave you to practice a few of these exercises now. So if you can come back into My City, I'll leave you with this. So for loop practice, and then there's some while loop practice exercises here. There's also a presentation for while loop, so you can take a look at that one as well. Okay, so a few exercises here. Now I'm trying to see which one would be a good one for you to try. Leave this one. Don't do the exercise one. Yeah, this one would be a good one. Exercise 2 would be a good one to try. Percentage, do this one as well. So percentage grade will be a good exercise in using the arithmetic operators. The assessment for this unit involves you using maths kind of arithmetic operators as well. So this will be a good one for you to do. Calculating the total sum of the grades and so on, and calculating the average of various things as well. Okay, any questions on that, folks? You okay with any of your previous programs that I've asked you to write last week and so on? If you have any issues or problems with those, you're okay with them? I haven't asked to see any of your code yet, and one of the things that I don't get to see, of course, working virtually is I don't get to see the code on your screens. So at some point, I will be asking you to maybe create a short program and just send it on to me. Probably once you've covered enough of the basic knowledge. So do practice these small exercises. And again, if you have any problems with them, just send them into Google Classroom and I'll take a look to see what needs to be done within them. Methods, I don't want to look, we did look at methods last week, but again, we'll use methods and return values. We'll look at these next week now, together with parameters, how to pass parameters and what parameters are. So these two topics I'll introduce next week, and at the same time I'll go into the GUI section with you next week. And these two, plus we'll start GUI applications. But before we go on to the GUI, folks, if I can ask you just to maybe spend some time reading through, make sure that you understand all the things that have gone before. And if you do have any questions, please, please, please ask. Like I said, I don't get feedback. I'm not able to walk around the room and look over your shoulder to see how you're coding these things. It's only if you volunteer that information to me. So I will at some point ask you to write some kind of program and send it on to me. These exercises at the end, like I said at the start of today, will give you a good practice run on understanding various things. The license generator will use some kind of looping within it as well. So anything that we've done up until now, using loops and so on, you could create license generator using everything that we've kind of covered up to now. And the same with Caesar Cipher. Conundrum game is again another one, but this is where you would use a random number, and this uses arrays, which we haven't looked at yet. When we go on to look at GUIs, I'll then move to look at arrays and array lists. So arrays, these I've still to cover, and array lists still to cover. But when we move on to the GUI application, then that's when we'll look at these arrays and array lists. If you want something to look at before, then if you manage to finish everything, then go on and check out arrays and array lists. Those of you who have done coding before, the arrays will most likely be familiar. The array list is an object in Java which has dynamic expansion. Arrays, as you know, are fixed in size. We declare them with a fixed size, but the array list automatically expands. So both these, again, this is coming soon in the weeks to kind of come. All good, folks?
Yep, all good.
Yeah. Just before we finish up, then maybe I can show you. This is me connected to my Citrix. I was downloading some code that I can show you. I couldn't find that final assessment, but let me see if I've got it now. Inside F. Java. Yeah, that's them all down now. So I'll see if I can open this for you just to show you what the final assessment is going to look like. Let me close down my Citrix. And I found out that students can only log into Citrix between 7 and 7. Even if you have tried after 7 p.m., it won't work, apparently. One of my day students was telling me that Citrix for students only works between 7 and 7. Right, so I'm in here and I'm going to open up open project. I hope this opens because the one that I have was from a previous example. College videos. Foundations. Okay, so the program for foundations for this unit then will be a GUI based one where you'll be taking a whole bunch of numbers, and then I'll run this. Let me just run it and just I can remember how it kind of runs. So this is something that you'll be expected to build. Something similar to this. So I enter some numbers in. These numbers get entered, and then a button to show the largest. The numbers that are being entered get saved to the array list, and that's why array lists, we need to understand array lists before we can move into the kind of GUI side of things. Arrays come first. Understand arrays first. Arrays are fixed size segments which are fixed size. And then the array list is dynamic. Notice I can keep entering these numbers. I can keep going. There's no fixed size. This is using an array list, which is automatically expanding and saving those numbers behind the scenes. I won't show you the code just now. And then I can click on this button to show the largest. The largest number that I entered was 78. Let me enter a larger one, 234. So 7 numbers went in. Show me the largest, 234. And again, this program, this section here is using the same numbers. It's calculating the average of my numbers. So I enter in 12, 23, 5, show details. So number I entered in 3 numbers. The total, the sum of all those numbers I entered, and then the average. Create username. If I enter in 2 text, then username gets created as, so it pulls out the first character from my string, from the string name, and it concatenates the last part at the end. And the last one is just sorting. So if I enter in some numbers, it should show me a sorted list, the lowest number to the highest number. Let me enter another one. I'll enter in a smaller number than 12, so 5. Sort it. Enter a larger number, 2, 3, 4. Sort it. It should give me a sorted list. So that's basically what you're expected to build as part of your project for this unit. So this program which you'll create has to be created in NetBeans using the GUI-based front end. Now, if you manage to create this using the assessment for this, folks, is inside the Foundations My City. Of course, it's in there. If you manage to create something similar to this in the command line, using command line Java, that's perfect, because you can then port all your code into this GUI-based one as well. And the reason why I'm not showing you the code is that the code is a lot of the code is generated by the system itself. And so you need to kind of understand what's happening within the GUI and how it builds it up. So when we come on to that, I'll show you this once we're on to the actual project then.
Asma, just a quick question on that. When is the assessment due? When we're likely to start that?
Before the end of the block, but you won't be able to start. You can start and build a command line version of it if you wanted. But I don't think we need to look at arrays. We need to look at array lists. So maybe a couple of weeks, at least for a couple of weeks, I think.
All right, okay.
Okay, so arrays, array lists. The assessment is in the My City Foundations. So I do have the assessment there if you want to sort of familiarize and look at it, look over it. Foundations. See here. Programming foundations. So arrays, you need to look at arrays, and then this array lists. Then we go into GUI building. And that's the program basically I showed you there just now. Where is so this Word document, let's just run it. There's also a report which you have to write, a report explaining things about object-oriented programming. So this is where that came from, that program which I just showed you. If you wanted to try this using command line, then what you would do is ask the user for a series of numbers and then use some code to calculate or find the largest number. So basically all this is doing is taking a set of numbers, then using a loop, finding the largest number that was entered. There's different tasks, different scenarios, and in the GUI it's just been broken up in that manner. So you could have one project created to find the largest of these numbers. Another program you could start off, which again asks for a whole list of numbers. Same idea. How many numbers? The number of files is unknown. So a for loop is not going to work. It has to be a while loop until the user decides to stop. So you could ask for numbers continuously until the user enters a -1. -1 would then become your conditional check inside the while loop. If you were doing this in command line, of course. It works slightly differently in the GUI because the GUI doesn't use scanner. The GUI is using a text box. Takes all these numbers in, and then once you've got all these numbers, count how many numbers were typed in, that's how many files. Add them all up, that gives you the total. And then divide by the number that was entered to give you the average. This one was just 2 strings, enter 2 strings, pull out the first character from the first string and join it up with the last name. And that becomes a username. And the last one is a sorting. So a whole series of numbers get entered and the program sorts them in order. The report is just an overview of all these scenarios, an explanation that we use Java, why we chose to use Java, some advantages, and this key differences between. So you could research this if you want. You could start to do a bit of research on. It's an object-oriented language. What's the difference between an OO language and a non-OO language? One of the things that you notice is that we're reusing code, we're reusing scanners, we're reusing methods and functions that have already been made up. So that's one of the advantages of using object-oriented programs and code. Okay, I will leave that there. I think we'll stop there, shall we, folks? The fireworks seem to have stopped around about me. I wonder, it's very distant now. We've run out of fireworks. Yippee! Okay, I'll leave you with that, folks. And then again, if you're trying any of the example programs, then please share that with me. If any of you are trying any of the more advanced programs at the end, I'd be really happy to see your code, to see how you go on with those as well. Some of my day students are doing those just now. So it'd be interesting to see how you manage to cope with these license generator, Caesar cipher, and if you did go on and look at arrays, you could attempt conundrum as well. But again, you need to understand the concept of what an array is for that. And anything else, folks, please let me know, even in an email, if this is working for you okay, if it's not working, if you're managing to get, if you want more exercises, more problems to try, do let me know in email. If it's just if you want to share it with the class, then please, again, you can just add it in here in the Google Classroom. All good? We'll stop there then, shall we? I'll stop sharing this and we shall finish up there. I'll see you on Tuesday now.